Let's say you are a developer and you are building an AI application. When you are building an AI application, you might have faced some issues. You have given your application to the users. Now users are complaining, man, your application is not working, AI is slow, AI is not giving the response as it is. Now you're wondering and scratching your head, what's going on? And if you want to find an answer, this video is for you. Here we will talk about observability. Let's dive in. So in the observability, what happens? It's a ability to see what is happening within the application when the users are running your app without guessing. So this is not a very specific problem. Everyone faces this problem. If you are a developer with enough experience, you might have faced this issue. So there is a standard which is called Open Observability Telemetry, and this standard help you to understand this solve this problem by understanding how the things works. It brings in three important concepts. These concepts are like logs, traces, right, and metrics. Now the logs are what? Logs are your application logs. So let's take an example. You are building an app, but you are a very good architect, right? So you thought, okay, I will not create just one service. You will create a microservices environment, right? So there are two, three services, and each service is logging whatever the operation that they are doing. So with this, you have the logs, which are the string forms with timestamp and some other relevant information. And if there is a crash, you put the stack trace also. All this is logged, and these logs will go to somewhere, right? Given you are running an microservices architecture, and each Docker container might be running in different environments, so they must send these logs to somewhere in a common place where you can see, right? What happens if your Docker container crashes? You can't see the previous logs. These are lost, right? So you have to send these logs to somewhere. Similarly, there is a metric. Now let's understand first what is metric. Metrics are the metadata about your application. For example, you are making a API call, and what is the latency for this for that API call? You might be running some like compute, right? So how much compute is used? CPU metrics, and you may also get some memory metrics also. So how much memory was there? And these metrics is time based. So basically, when your application started, at the 0th minute, then at the first minute, then the second minute, and minute is one frequency that I am picking, and it could be that this metrics can be collected at a lower frequency also. For example, you are collecting it every minute. So every minute you are collecting how much memory is used. If you are using RAM, then how much RAM, the status of the RAM, CPU usage, every services like usage, how many calls which is going to the different services, or any external APIs. For example, if you're building Gen AI application, you might be calling OpenAI and all, or Gemini or Claude, any LLM, right? And you may host your own LLM also. So all those latency, how much it is taking, because these are the external APIs, right? And you need to monitor if you want to understand what happened during a user's process. So what may happen, like there may be high latency, like OpenAI is not responding properly, or Gemini is not responding properly, and there are some prompts. So here I will talk about, now move to the third aspect, which is traces. So what are traces? Consider this. Let's say you need to go from one place to another place, and you might be moving to different points. And this is general example. So you might be collecting the data at each point, right? And let's take your application again. You are making a request, and that request is first touching the microservice one, right? And then it is making a call to microservices two. It is making some calls to LLMs. Then the response is coming back. After that, you might be calling some compute intensive functions, right? You might be calling some jobs which is asynchronous, and then maybe doing some further processing, and then later on waiting for that asynchronous job to come together and join, and then at the end you are returning some response. So many things is happening. So how you collect the data, what happened during a particular call? Because these calls, these touch points to different APIs and different services are not mandatory. These are based on some conditions, right? So you need to know when a particular user made a request, how that request flow to the different parts of the system. When you collect this information, this is called the traces. So traces is basically some metadata where a call went and what is the input, what is the output, right? You collect all those things and some kind of latency, how much time spent during a particular service. So all these things are connected whenever there is one request. So for a one request from the user, then can be multiple logs at each services which you have logged and processed and put it in a one particular service. And this can be different types of system that we can build. For example, ELK, Elasticsearch, where we are sending all the logs, or there are like Datadog and Sentry. There are so many things which is happening. These are the different tools that you can put. So what happens now? You have collected logs, you have collected traces, you have collected metrics also. So metrics is at a regular frequency which is getting collected for for each service. Now traces is within a request how many different touch point it has. You collected that data. Now you have all this information in one system. Done. Now you have any issue, you will have the enough information in your system that you can go back and see the timestamp when that request comes, or you can search based on the user ID or any important basically ID which is specific to that particular request, or even the request ID, right? After that, you have logs, metrics, traces. You have everything which you can guess, or not guess actually. You can identify what happened in your system. So if there are logs, you know how the logs are logged when a particular service is called. So you can read those, and if there are caches, if there is something anomaly which is happening, you can see that. The second thing is your metrics. So whenever something is happening, and then your infrastructure might go wrong, right? Your application code is perfectly working fine, but what may happen, your application, the infrastructure on which it is running, they might crash. There is high load or something happened. There's a lot of memory issues in resources, right? So all these things can be collected through, identified through metrics. Now traces. You identified one request which has some issue. You go to all the nodes and see how that particular request got back from the input to output. You can see all the inputs and see where is an anomaly, right? You have all the touch points. So this is how you can debug any request which is failing, and this is called observability. Now to set up these logs, traces, and metrics, there are different types of solutions which is available. Open source also, and paid also, but there's a standard which is OpenTelemetry. It talks about how to send this data to some system and how to retrieve this information, so that you build a better observability for your application. And in the context of the AI, it become more important. You might have worked before, but there is not much necessity if you're building a project from the scratch. So right, so these are the things when done when there's a project which is scaling. not even scaling, but before the scaling, you need to think about it. But in especially of Gen AI application, you have to think from the day one, because LLMs are unpredictable, non-deterministic. Things can go wrong. You change your prompt, you get a response in a completely different form. So it becomes challenging, right? In such cases, if you use some platform like Logfire and Arizona and LangChain, Langsmith, right? There are many such platform of observability. These are not just limited one. There are open source also. So you can put this system and see your traces. And in the case of GenAI, I think the traces is some of the best thing that we can see and find out whether AI is hallucinating, whether the models APIs are having high latency. So it's important whenever your client asks or users ask, okay, this is not working. You need to know what is the timestamp, so that you have run the request or the ID, and you can search and find out the root cause and fix. Especially in LLMs, this is more needed, right? You can't avoid this thing. Um, like you deploy the solution fast, but to make it production ready, it takes time, some iteration, and traces is one of the key solution that you can explore for making a production ready AI application. Thank you.